Right, here's a big question for you, and this is a dangerous question, so here we go. Right, we now genuinely have to have a real hypothetical discussion of what happens if Cloud9 doesn't go to Worlds. Like, look at the bracket they've got set up. They're going to basically play the loser of 100 Thieves EG and then the loser of, like, whatever the next match is. This is all before you even get to Worlds. Like, they're going to have 2 massive best-of-5s after this, assuming they just beat Golden Guardians. Like, this is now a real possibility. And obviously, listen, last year it was already a tragedy because obviously they had the amazing spring split where they were so dominant, blah, blah, no MSI. This year would be even worse, in light of the massive Perkz move, that everything looked awesome in spring at the end again. Like, the storyline would be so harsh for C9 if they don't get to go to Worlds. So, like, what do you think of this possibility? Because it has to be on the table now after how that series went.
Yeah, I don't know what would happen because, like, Fudge for sure has been, like, the best player on that team for this play.
You get rid of Blaber is the answer.
Yeah,
probably have to. I know no fan wants to hear it because he's so young. Listen, it's one of those ones as well, Monty, that you hate because you know he's going to go to some rival team and probably look good domestically. Like, everything about it you hate, but the problem is this. I know every fan's going to go, you're all just fucking fanboys, kick Perkz. It's like, I don't feel like that's the solution in the long term is the problem. Like, if you had a choice in a year from now, who's in their best form, Perkz or Blaber, you'd pick Perkz. You'd want your team built around Perkz, of course.
Here's the like, I think Raz had some extremely good points earlier about the kind of junglers that we've seen Perkz play with in the past and how effective those junglers have been. I think that you're probably, at some point, Sven's probably going to get a level of residency in NA.
Surely
I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, you're not going to kick Fudge because he's a resident player. He's been playing well. You're not going to kick Perkz for many reasons, but it's like you invested heavily in this guy. He's not bad suddenly, even if he's not having a good split. He's still the greatest Western player of all time. And purely from a branding perspective, like, you would be an idiot to get rid of that.
Sure.
Jankos has repeatedly intimated this year in many different conversations that he's had that about joking about retiring in NA. I think you'd be deluded to think that Perkz has not had this conversation.
By the way, he would definitely want to play with Jankos, I'll tell you right now. Like, when they were in the super team of G2, I did a show where, no joke, Perkz literally said he thought Jankos was the best player he'd ever played with. Because I'm assuming he meant, like, in terms of decision making and the way you knew what to do. Like, dude, he is a massive fan of Jankos. So it'd be, on paper, it's the obvious move. Carlos wants to make money rather than just let them go for free. This is how you sell them for a few million. I even think it's a great move if you could do it. The problem with it is, Monty, like I said, it'll just never be popular. Because if you're a fan, it's like, but we must keep Blaber. It's like, no, in my opinion, if you're Jack, what you actually do is the fact that he'll still have a high stock means you just sell him for millions to, like, TSM or something, Yeah.
And here's the thing. Like, we know that Cloud9 has confidence in King. King didn't play badly. King was not the reason why Cloud9 was losing. He's a domestic player. So if I'm Jack and I'm GMing C9 and they don't make Worlds, what I'm thinking is get Jankos or get a jungler that Perkz wants to play with, keep Fudge, keep Vulcan, and either take King or trade Blaber for a domestic AD carry.
By the way, there's a lot of domestic AD carries all of a sudden. Think about it. You got the fucking Danny guy, Johnson. Like, there's some pretty decent talent, actually. That's the one role that's, like, mad underrated, I think, in that sense.
It is definitely, for me, like, a nightmare scenario because, like, in no way should a management / coaching staff, like, look at this position and be like, we can't make these players work together. Because Blaber, even though I've mentioned all the issues, it's like, these are issues you can for sure resolve. But, like, he is an MVP jungler, at least from Spring Split. And
so was Svenskeren before Blaber took over.
Yeah, but, like, that's the thing. C9 is a team that are not afraid of making big changes. So, like, that's the one thing I look back and I'd be like, yeah, like, Licorice was the best top laner in the league at the time in which this was when, like, I'm trying to remember when Alfari came in, but, like, in the time in which they ended up trading him. And, you can make multiple changes too. Go on.
I was going to say, here's another option. You put Perkz back at AD carry and you import a European mid.
See? So, like, right? I think you can make the change between mid or jungle that fits the style. And, like, yeah, if you put the Jankos deal in front of my face, then of course you have to go with, like, Jankos as a player. Like, if he actually is showing interest and wants to come in, then absolutely that would be a crazy decision not to go for him.
By the way, that also low-key would be hilarious, Monty, if the move actually is a second time Perkz just goes to AD and you just recruit a sick EU mid laner and like you've just got an OP team again. That would actually be genius if you did it. Because obviously the logic is like it's way easier to find a super sick European mid laner than it is like an AD carry that's available that wants to join your team. It's true. Yeah.
It also just solves the problems that you have when it comes to the synergy between mid and Blaber. As you find a mid that's better suited to Blaber, you still maintain Perkz' skill and leadership on your team. And who knows what was going on with Sven, but if those problems still exist within the team, you also solve those problems. I think Sven's probably a better AD carry than Perkz is, but I think Perkz' intangibles are very valuable. And clearly there was some sort of personal conflict that created the situation with Sven earlier this split. I just looked up Jankos's his contract, and it doesn't expire until the end of 2022. So it would also amuse me if Jack had to pay like another $5 million to G2.
Yeah, so At that point, Carlos is like, "Look, Jack, come back anytime, mate. You're my favorite customer. Yeah, I'll give you the 10% discount." You know?
Basically, at that point in time,
I know.
Like, Cloud9 is basically the VC, the venture capital for G2, except Cloud9 doesn't even get equity in the team. They're just basically providing this insane runway to G2.
Oh no. Oh god.
It's a great scheme. You gotta say it's a great scheme. So I don't know if Cloud9 would do that, just because I'm sure the buyout for Jankos would be insane, because Carlos does a good job of negotiating those circumstances. But
yeah, for me, I mean I'm a shit manager if I would ever be put in that position. So like, just don't trust me when it comes to it. But that's why I would look at this team and I'd be like, I say the players are really fucking good. And if unless there's anything internally that cannot be resolved, if the players are confident and can work together, I would run it back one more time. I ain't spending that money for something where I have already like the best players in their position if they're seeing eye to eye. Like,
I honestly think that this whole Cloud9 issue is a personality conflict, and there's just nobody capable of solving it on this roster, because you can stack up your coaching staff with as many people as you like who are former pro players or positional coaches, but unless they are capable of dealing with whatever personality issues that are causing this, whether it's really bad comms in game that is caused by, people not being able to communicate with each other effectively due to personality issues or whatever happened with Sven, it seems to me that is the fundamental issue, and that they lack somebody on the coaching staff to like step up and take control of it. Because, it's true. Like, if you look at the personalities they have, Jack himself is very conflict averse as a person. He doesn't really get into it with people. Like, he has some banter on Twitter, but just knowing him personally, he's not the one to really confront people about things. That's not really his style. And I think that's true, maybe less of Mithy, but everyone else on that coaching staff, in my opinion, has been like pretty passive overall. And you have to be able to stand up to some really, really strong personalities with people like Perkz and Sven on that team. And I think that's hard given the pedigree of those players and how long they've been playing.
By the way, I will say that as well. As much as I don't like to call for people's jobs, if you have the talent that we're talking about in a team and you don't make worlds, that's probably a fireable offense for a coach. Like, because even if you're a good coach, the logic is not with this team. Because I agree with Vaz to some degree. Part of me does also think it is stupid that this has to be like some Sophie's choice. Like, why is there not any way to make both players work? But the problem is, at the moment, the current unit cannot do that. Like, to me, that would have to be someone drastic comes in as a coaching change who has like a different vision, maybe Perkz himself. I would even suggest that angle, by the way. If you're really going to build around Perkz long term, ask him what he needs. Does he need a different style of coach? What did he like or didn't like in past teams? What could he change in that regard?
But I think it's also worth pointing out, just like Raz did with the junglers, if you look at the coaches that Perkz has had, Grabs is much more of a personality conflict resolution
guys.
coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Rather than, Cloud9's stacked with strategy people. They're stacked with analysts. G2 had nothing except for Grabs. I mean, not nothing, but like, it was mostly Grabs being a manager.
Yeah, basically, as far as I can tell, from the vibe you got from a lot of the past teams was like the team sort of runs itself, and then the coach just does basic stuff with the draft and that. doesn't seem like, it seems like if anything, they've gone the opposite approach here, Monty, because they've stacked it with like LS disciples, haven't they? So it's all about the fucking strategic side in theory. But that to me, that's been a mismatch so far. I haven't really seen how that's manifested in the game. I still don't really get why that angle, aside from the names, was flexed so hard. Because that's the one aspect. In the game, they never did look like they were coming out with all genius picks and all like new angles. They just look all right.
Talking about G2?
No, talking about C9, because everyone raved about this like staff of people, and now you'd have all these smart
our coaches can beat half the LCS teams. Like exactly. that was their thing, is that our coaches are players, right? Yeah. And so we if we put our coaching staff in as our lineup, then we'll take down Golden Guardians or FlyQuest or whatever, right? Which is actually feasible. Like you would, it's definitely you could definitely see it happening.
Yeah, that's why for me, and this kind of, I don't know, I want to make this like a derailment, because whenever people talk about like coach of the split, like even though I voted just because it was like, this is an award that exists, and I feel like I'll just put my 2 cents in, even though I literally don't know what the fuck is happening internally for most of these teams. Like I will just put in my own idea of like, hey, this team made improvements strategically or whatever, but you can't really pin on who's making these improvements, whether it's the players themselves or the coaching staffs or like whatever it is.
Well, you can give it to EG because they actually upgraded their roster and changed it to fit their style. And you can, that happened. That happened 100%.
Yep. True. So like, yeah, absolutely. So like you can make it around those cases, but like going to C9 specifically, yeah, I mean, I respect the coaching staff on them, but like I always think that different teams need different style of coaches, where in this case, if you have the best and brightest players, then know and understand completely what their roles are, or at least like what their position is, right? They can better understand their matchups than the other junglers or the other mid laners, et cetera, then you just need them to get together an idea. So like a grab style idea, like a coach that can get them on the same page is, I think, needed. But I don't know if that was the style that they had, so I can't really comment on that at all. But I just can comment on the fact that it ain't fucking working.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.